Good morning, everyone. I'd like to bring this Development and Planning Services Committee meeting to order for Monday, March the 18th, 2019. You have an agenda in front of you. Is there any additions from staff to the agenda?
None from staff, Your Worship.
Okay, thank you. Councillors, do you have any additions to the agenda? Is there any disclosure of interest? Okay, thank you. Just before we do our business this morning, probably many of you noticed as you came in that our flags are at half-mast today, and that the City of Salmon Arm also has issued a press release or a statement expressing our sorrow and our sadness for the people in Christchurch. And we want to emphasize that we believe in tolerance and understanding and education, and that we have a lot more similarities and differences with other people in the world. We want the people in Salmon Arm, the people who've immigrated here, to know that they are welcome, and that the Muslim community is welcome here, and that we understand and they are us. So I just wanted to make that statement this morning, and to thank Councillor Wallace Richmond for helping write the statement for us. Do any other councillors want to comment on that before we move on with business? Okay, thank you. We're on item number 5, reports. Zoning amendment application number 1143, Wilson and Johnson, and we have a motion.
Moved by Councillor Wallace Richmond, seconded by Councillor Flynn, that the Development and Planning Services Committee recommends to Council that a bylaw be prepared, adoption of which would amend zoning bylaw 2303 by rezoning Lot 4, Plan 23814 from R1 single family to R8 residential suite zone, and that final reading be withheld subject to the following: registration of a covenant on title ensuring access to Okanagan Avenue is not permitted, and approval by the Ministry of Transportation.
Great, thank you very much. Could I have the Director of Development Services explain the application, please?
Good morning, Your Worship. The property is located on First Avenue Northeast, and it also fronts onto Okanagan Avenue in the rear, and it is 1/3 of an acre in size. The applicant is Anne-Marie Johnson, and the property is her mom's, and she's applying to rezone it to R8 in order to be able to build a detached suite in the backyard of the property. And there's some samples of what she has in mind for a detached suite, a suite above a garage most likely. And in terms of the community plan, the whole area is designated for medium density residential zoning. And the type of zoning you see around here is a combination, mostly R1. There's some R4 medium density. There's one R8 parcel on First Avenue Southeast, and there's a whole subdivision of CD7 in Maplewoods, which allows suites. The property size is very conducive for detached suites, and the applicant is agreeable for the covenant, so no access could occur off Okanagan Avenue, as difficult as that would be physically anyways. But nevertheless, a covenant is needed for this, and Ministry of Transportation approval is also required.
Great, thank you very much. Is the applicant here this morning? Ms. Wilson.
Ms. Johnson.
Ms. Johnson. Yes, got you. You are the daughter. Yeah. Please come forward if you'd like to come to the microphone. And if you want to add anything or tell us your situation, that would be great.
My mom has been on her own for 20 years, and she's getting quite elderly. She turned 75 this year. She shovels her own driveway. The yard is becoming a little too much for her. So, and our situation's changing. So for affordability, this is pretty much the only way for us to move to town. It's just too expensive otherwise. So we've got a son with us with Down syndrome. So we need something sort of on our own to be able to move into, and we thought this would be a good option for us. We know we're only allowed the one driveway, which we're going to share the driveway with Mom, cut across in front of her front yard to go into the back. It's been difficult trying to find something that's suitable size because the yard is sort of tiered, so it's gonna look a little different than the pictures that we've got Home Hardware working on. So we've got a couple options. We're just trying to finalize some plans, and we were waiting for, there's some gray areas with the city that we're trying to get confirmed on, so that we know we don't have to come back to you with plans. We know that we're okay with what we're doing. So I had that come Friday. I don't have anything else to bring forward yet because I'm waiting for those plans to get drawn up. So.
Great. Well, thank you very much for sharing your story. It gives us some context. I'll just see if councillors have any questions for you. Council, any questions for Ms. Johnston? Okay, thank you very much. You can have a seat. Council will open up for discussion or questions to staff for you. I don't see any questions from council. I'd just like to check with the Director of Development Services. First of all, this is exactly the kind of housing we want. Is there any need for covenant or for variances as far as setbacks on the driveway?
If the suite is located in approximately this location in the rear yard, it would have to be 3 meters from Okanagan.
Okay, which probably will work because it's a little steep back there. But as far as the driveway running beside the house, there's lots of room there, it looks like.
Yes, there's a lot of width there.
Okay, great. Okay, any other inquiries from council? Okay, all those in favor? Thank you, passes unanimously. So what will happen is that this will move forward to council next Monday. Staff's probably explained to you when we'll look at it there and then move to public hearing after that. Thank you very much. Okay, we will move to item number 2, zoning amendment application number 1144, Stevens and Burns, 2810 25th Street Northeast, R1 to R8. We have a motion.
Moved by Councillor Lyson, seconded by Councillor Cannon, that the Development and Planning Services Committee recommends to Council that a bylaw be prepared, adoption of which would amend zoning bylaw 2303 by rezoning Lot 1, Plan EPP 69695 from R1 single family to R8 residential suite zone, and that final reading be withheld subject to confirmation that the suite meets zoning bylaw and BC Building Code requirements.
Thank you. Director of Development Services.
This is another application to rezone a property from R1 to R8. In this instance, there's already a house on the property, and it's not for a detached suite but for a basement suite. And the owner, Samantha Stevens, and her partner purchased the lot last year. They thought, I'm not sure exactly what happened, but I think they assumed there was a legal suite in the house, and it turned out that it was not. And now she would like to rezone the property as a first step to legalizing the suite. And the second step would be a building permit for the suite in the basement.
Understand. Thank you very much. Is Ms. Stevens here? Good morning. Would you like to come forward to the microphone? Did you want to add anything to what the director has said to us?
Sure, yeah, he is correct. We purchased the house last April. The suite was part of an agreement with the sellers that the suite would be put in for us. It was completed before we took possession of the home, and it wasn't until May that we basically found out from you guys that the suite was illegal and that it wasn't zoned properly and that a building permit wasn't put through either. So we're basically kind of working backwards just to make it right with you guys.
Okay, great, thank you very much. Any questions for Ms. Stevens? Okay, well, we appreciate you coming forward. Thank you. You can have a seat. Council, do you have any questions regarding this application? Okay, seeing none, I'll call the question. All in favor? Passes unanimously. So with the same, this would come up at council meeting on Monday, public hearing to follow. Thanks very much. All right, we'll move on to item number 3. This is official community plan amendment application. It's Cutting Edge Holdings, HC to HDR, and you can see there's a zone in one related to it, number 4. I would ask for a motion from the floor to get this moved forward. Thank you, Councillor Eliason. Second, Councillor Cannon, thank you. I'll have the administrator read the motion, please.
Moved by Councillor Eliason, seconded by Councillor Cannon, that the Development and Planning Services Committee recommends to Council that a bylaw be prepared, adoption of which would amend OCP bylaw 4000 for Lot 1, Plan 17069, from highway service commercial to high-density residential.
Thank you. Director of Development Services.
Your Worship, the property located at 1231 30th Street Northeast is located approximately 200 meters north of Setters on the west side of 30th Street, right beside this townhouse complex. And right now in the community plan, it's designated for highway commercial. And the proposal is to change the OCP land use designation to high density residential, and also to change the zoning from R1 to R5 to accommodate a 5 or 6 unit multifamily development. The applicant is Cutting Edge Holdings Limited, and we've been dealing with Christine Durston on that. I think that might be the name of the company. I guess this one was a little bit difficult for staff to support, but what put me over the edge on supporting it was the fact that a group home was built on this property, and that kind of negated the ability for both properties to be amalgamated into a suitable commercial lot, which would have been a better scenario here. But the fact that we have a group home with 6 people living in it, built by the province, having this piece here, which is about 1/3 of an acre, as an island of commercial between residential, medium density here, low to medium here, doesn't really make a lot of sense to keep this commercial. And in the whole scheme of things in our commercial land inventory, it's another small fragment. We've been supporting these changes from commercial to high density residential periodically over the last 5 years. Not much though. We don't do it often, maybe once every 2 years. For that reason, I support it, and we don't have a development permit for the proposal, so any drawings you see in your agenda are just conceptual. And although 13 units, I wouldn't say could fit on the property, but the maximum density based on the lot size is 13 units. Only 5 to 6 units are proposed.
Thank you very much. Is a proponent applicant here? Okay.
No.
Council, do you have any questions regarding this OCP change, which is also has a zoning attached to it? Okay, Councillor Flynn.
Thank you. And through you to the Director of Development Services. Just to be clear, the piece that has the group home on it, we really have no control over that. The province can do that where they want without applying for zoning. Is that correct?
Director of Development Services.
That's correct. If the property is zoned for residential, which they both are, but the one with the group home is still R1, the province can build and own and operate a group home up to 6 people, okay, without zoning or city approval.
Okay. And because of that, I will support this. I do think, though, as our rep at Economic Development, I think there's a feeling at our table that we have all kinds of highway commercial designation, but there's not a lot, by what I've heard from the EDS, of market-ready highway commercial. So I think we have to be careful and watch our highway commercial, but this piece makes sense to be residential, so I will support it. And it may be that I need to get economic development to sit down with staff and just make sure they feel there's enough of an inventory of highway commercial. So.
Thank you, Councillor Flynn. Any other council wish to comment on this application? Call the question in. All those in favor? Passes unanimously. Thank you. We'll move on to item number 5, development variance permit number 494, Eagle Home Sales, Lawson Engineering. I need a motion to get this one on the floor. Councillor Wallace Richmond, second Councillor Eliason.
Your worship, I think we've skipped item 4.
Okay, I'm sorry. So that was not, I misread that. That was not attached to item 3. So we have to do that separately?
Yes.
Okay, all right. So that's the zoning piece to the item that we just looked at. Could I have a motion to get that on the floor, please? Councillor Eliason, Councillor Wallace Richmond. Could I have the motion read, please?
Moved by Councillor Eliason, seconded by Councillor Wallace Richmond, that the Development and Planning Services Committee recommends to Council that a bylaw be prepared, adoption of which would amend zoning bylaw 2303 by rezoning Lot 1, Plan 17069 from R1 single family to R5 high density residential, and that final reading be withheld subject to the following. Number 1, Ministry of Transportation approval, and number 2, adoption of the associated OCP amendment bylaw.
Great, thank you very much. And that's the second half of that motion on page 25. Director of Development Services, did you want to comment on that?
Your worship, this proposed zoning amendment goes hand in hand with the OCP amendment to rezone the property from R1 to R5. I'd like to point out an error in the table here. The table refers to setback west, and that is actually the rear lot line adjacent to the townhouse, so that should be 5 meters. And south is an interior lot line, so this should be 2.4 meters. So we'll fix that table before it goes to council.
Could you show us that on Appendix 1, just so we have the direction correctly?
Sure. So this is the west property line,
Okay.
and it's the rear. So any building would have to be set back 5 meters from here.
Okay.
And then the, oops, I'm on the other report. Okay, anyways, this is the north property line. It's interior. You have to be 2.4 meters from here. This is the south property line. It's interior, and you'd have to be 2.4 meters from here. And you'd have to be 5 meters from here.
Okay, the important part for us is the back one, that's 5 meters. So appreciate that correction. Thank you very much. Councillor Eliason.
Yeah, thanks. And Councillor Flynn brings up some good comments about what's available. The EDS did write a letter of support for this one, but the obviously we'll need to look closer at what we have left for highway commercial development. The next part is as North Broadview is a busy street, the applicants will want to make sure that they have adequate on-site parking for when it comes forward for their development permit. I'm assuming that will be taken care of, and the ministry writes a letter about the traffic study and the traffic issues there. While I don't think that these 6 units will be the make or break of the McDonald's intersection, I think that it's something that we should look at, especially if you look at the larger OCP map and see the 2 remaining R1 lots left down behind the Askew's development and the current R4 development that's happening behind the Askew's development. So there will be increased traffic demands on this intersection. I'm not saying it's this parcel that will do it, but I'm fully in support. We've been asking for housing and density for a long time, it seems like, and it's these types of applications that we get to support. So I will vote in favor.
Thank you. Councillor Wallace Richmond.
Thanks, Your Worship. I'll also vote in favor. I just want to clarify that R4 would have been fewer than 6 units? Is that why they didn't go R4 through you to?
Director of Development Services.
That's a great question. With R4, you could get the same number of units. The maximum height's not quite as high.
I see.
And the setbacks along the interior lot lines are a little bit less than 2.4 meters. I think they're 1.8.
Okay, thank you for explaining that.
Great, thank you. Any other comments or questions from council? Thanks. I agree with the comments made by other councillors, and really the parking is going to determine the number of units here. That's what the limiting factor is going to be. So 6 unit maximum, that's going to fit in perfectly with what's already there. So I will support as well. All those in favor? Any opposed? It's unanimous. Thank you. All right, now we'll move on to item number 5. Application variance permit number 494, Eagle Home Sales, 1190 51st Street Northeast. And we will get a motion up on the screen there. Thank you. I believe that was moved by Councillor Wallace Richmond and seconded by Councillor Eliason. Could I have the administrator read the motion, please?
Sure, I'm not sure I heard the mover and seconder.
Oh, sorry.
I would move the staff recommendation, Your Worship.
Okay, I believe Councillor Wallace Richmond, did you want to make the motion, or will you pass over to Councillor Eliason?
Happy to pass over.
Okay, Councillor Eliason.
Rather than the motion for consideration, is it possible to make the staff recommendation?
Yes, I believe so, because the motion has not been put on the table yet. So you would like to move a motion with the staff recommendation included?
Yes, please.
Thank you. So what that would, okay, that's fine. Seconder for that motion, Councillor Wallace Richmond. Would the administrator read the amended motion, please?
Sure, it's moved by Councillor Eliason, seconded by Councillor Wallace Richmond, that the Development Planning Services Committee recommends to Council that VP 494 be authorized for issuance for Lot 1, Plan KAP 79341 to vary subdivision and development servicing bylaw number 4163 as follows. Waive the requirement for full frontage upgrades along the western portion of 51st Street Northeast, and waive the requirement to install street lighting along the frontage of the subject property. And then also, Your Worship, with the amendment that's been incorporated, paragraphs 1 and 2 are deleted and replaced with the following. Reduce the requirement to construct the full frontage along the western portion of 51st Street Northeast along the hooked portion of the subject property to the full RD2 standard, and instead allow a modified road design for upgrades to the RD7 standard as shown in Appendix 7.
Great, thank you. So the motion actually is the top section. Sections 1 and 2 are not in the motion, but the recommendation of staff is there. Okay, so that's, I'll ask the Director of Development Services to explain the proposal.
Your Worship, Eagle Homes was granted a development permit a couple of years ago to build a new outlet on this portion of the property. The property is hooked over 51st Street Northeast, which is a frontage road that was built by the Ministry of Transportation when the Trans-Canada Highway was all redone, I guess, back about 15 years ago. And this parcel remained hooked, and the larger lot on the east side went through a series of applications, starting with an exclusion from the ALR, changing the OCP designation from acreage reserve to highway commercial, rezoning the property to C3, and then the development permit for the mobile home sales office and service building. I have some photos which I'll show in a sec. Countryside mobile home sales is directly adjacent to the south, and that property went through a similar series of events, and they asked for some variances too when they developed. They had to upgrade the 10th Avenue Southeast frontage to an urban standard at the time. And if you drive along there, you'll see curb, gutter, sidewalk, ornamental street lighting. There's two street lights along here. And their variance included not have to do anything along this frontage. Then when Eagle Homes, with their development permit, they asked to not have to build the sidewalk along this frontage here. And that was approved. But they still had to upgrade the frontage to the RD7 standard, which is more like the rural standard with ditching and no curb and gutter. and there was no variance requested for this frontage on the east side of 51st Street. When they went in for the building permit application after the DP was approved, it was revealed, and I think they were surprised, and in all honesty, I don't think our staff realized that they had forgotten to apply for this until the analysis was done, and then it was determined that technically by the bylaw, this frontage here has to be upgraded to the urban standard. So they bonded for all the servicing required in order to get their building permit, and we have the bond. And staff support the variance to lower the standard from RD2 to RD7 along here. The only thing we don't support is to waive the requirement for street lighting. And the bond for the street lighting portion is about $37,000.
Okay, thank you very much. I see Mr. Lawson is with us this morning. Would you like to come forward and talk to us?
Thanks, Your Worship. I'm actually just here for any questions today.
Okay. You heard the motion, which is different than the what was requested. The present motion would require street lighting and RD7 standard. Did you want to talk about that at all?
Yeah, you know, the owner's desire is obviously not to have the street lighting. So the current design actually has the east side of 51st constructed with a curb and gutter and a ditch on the far side of that. So yeah, their desire is to have no curb and gutter, the RD7 road standard on the west side of the road, and still to not have street lighting. The argument there is essentially without the sidewalks and without street lighting on the remainder of 51st Street, they feel that street lighting isn't required or desired in front of their sales lot.
Okay. So really what we're talking about, we're not talking about RD7 then, because it sounds like the applicant's going to meet that standard. What we're talking about is the street lighting here.
That's right. That's their wishes, yeah.
Okay, I just want to clarify that with the Director of Development Services, that the only variance difference of what's being asked and what council's motion is the streetlights.
That's correct. We agree with the idea of reducing the standard from RD2 to RD7 along both frontages, except as you mentioned, Blake, curb and gutter will be provided along the east frontage, but along the west frontage, the RD7 without curb and gutter but ditching is acceptable to staff and no sidewalk. But our city engineer feels that we should have street lighting in this location.
Okay, I understand. Council, do we have questions for Mr. Lawson this morning? All right, no questions right now, Blake. We'll see after we discuss. I'll open it up for questions for staff or discussion by council. Councillor Wallace-Richmond.
Thanks, Your Worship. Through you to the Director of Engineering, can we hear the rationale for having those streetlights? And I'm assuming it's not just for aesthetic purposes. So.
Thank you. Director of Engineering and Public Works.
Thank you, Your Worship. So as stated in the report, the reasoning for the street lighting on that side of the street is both for vehicle and pedestrian safety, as there is no overhead lighting currently. And we just feel that it would be very important to be consistent along that boulevard.
Thank you.
Any other questions from council? Okay. Director of Development Services, how many streetlights are we talking about?
5.
5 streetlights? Okay.
Oh.
I think it's 4.
I was just talking to the engineering assistant on Friday, and I heard we had a bond of $37,500 for 5 streetlights. So that information may be incorrect.
Okay, so it's 4 or 5, which is fine. I just wanted to get an idea on the spacing. Okay, council, do you have any other questions regarding this? Councillor Flynn.
The map that shows 3 trees, where in that map could you point out, yeah, I think those are 3 red trees. Where would the streetlights be? Because 5 in that little lot seems like a lot.
There'd be 4 on the east side.
So 4 on the side fronting the road, none on the west side?
That's correct.
Okay.
Okay, any other questions? Okay, we'll call the question. All those in favor? Any opposed? Passes unanimously. Thank you. So that'll move forward to council as well. I do not believe there's any other items. Council, do you have any other items? Staff does not. We have a motion to adjourn.
Moved by Councillor Cannon, second by Councillor Flynn, that the Development and Planning Services Committee meeting of March 18, 2019 be adjourned.
All those in favor? Thank you very much. We'll meet in room 100. Yeah, 5 minutes.